Two guys either side of 50 with one dream to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Pilgrims, welcome back to this latest episode of the Missing Links Golf Show. I am Steve Hinks, joined by Andy Walker. Welcome back, Andy Walker.
G'day, Mr. Hinks. How are you?
Mate, I am getting there. I'm getting there. And
Few little issues?
Yes, Pilgrims, it's been a tough week. Struck down by the dreaded COVID, which is, to be perfectly honest, knocked me flat for the past week, which has been a little bit of a struggle. So certainly no golf and certainly not a lot of practice either. And it's been a bit of a battle doing anything, to be perfectly honest. But I'm happy to say that I'm on the other side and fingers crossed we'll be okay in a couple of days.
Yes. Well, I've sort of, as we sort of just spoke about, had the reverse in that I've just picked up a little injury in my latest sojourns on the golf course. So I'm just about to take a little bit of a break, probably about a week, just to let the body repair and recover from my injuries, and a little bit of treatment in there as well. Chiropractic, remedial massage, perhaps some physio, whatever it takes to get myself right, because I've got a big month or so coming up.
This is the reality of a golf show hosted by two blokes either side of 50, ladies and gentlemen. You can almost smell the liniment and denker rub floating around the recording booths at the moment. But no, it's been a bit of a battle. But anyway, enough about our struggles. I'm sure we'll get to them in due course. But today we've got an exciting episode, Andy Walker, for the Pilgrims. We've got what I think I would describe as part 2 of our technical series. We've spent a lot of time talking about the mental side of the game, and we've obviously spent a bit of time talking about practice and planning and some of those other elements. And, of course, previous episode, we talked to Jason Butt about club fittings, which was really interesting conversation, and I think there was a lot of good info there. In fact, we did get a message from one of our Pilgrims that said that he was, after listening to that, going to head out and book himself in for a fitting, which I think is awesome. But we will get to Voice of the Pilgrims in the next episode. We're not doing that today. But this one, Andy Walker, was a bit of a different speed. I think it's safe to say.
Yes, a higher speed, or at least trying to get a higher speed. So, we as the Pilgrims would know, I've been doing some speed training with my swing, probably the last 18 months. It's been since I got a little present for my 50th birthday called the Stack.
The Stack.
So this has been on the radar a little while, and we're finally
nice. That's another good pun there, on the radar. That's good.
Yeah, you like it?
Well done. Yep.
So it's been on the horizon for a little while, and we've finally got across the line and had Dr. Sasho MacKenzie on the show in interview a little bit earlier, which is really, really good.
Yeah, it was a fantastic chat. A lot of amazing information in there from Sasho, and I think he's just such a left field thinker about the game. And brings a lot of expertise from his knowledge around biomechanics and also just interesting, bit of a crazy inventor in some way, shape or form with the way that he goes about looking at equipment and changes to equipment and how that might help people play better golf. So, Andy Walker, we've got that recording now to play for our Pilgrim. Shall we cut to the chase and press play and unpack it on the flip side?
Let's do that.
Alrighty. See you on the other side, people. Andy Walker, another special guest to the show. We've just gone through a bit of a bio of this guest, but I might, since you're a bit of a disciple of his, I think is the word. I might get you to bring our guest into the call.
Yeah, look, I'm really excited to have our next guest on. Actually been having conversations for the last few months, but our calendars haven't aligned. So today they're finally aligned, and we've got him on the show. Now, he founded a system that was actually my first foray into the modern game. I've always been very old school, but sort of being dragged into the modern game has been an interesting experience. But I also see it as one of my core growth areas as I get back into competitive golf and age a little bit. So I'm really excited to have on the show Dr. Sasho MacKenzie from the Stack System. Welcome to the show, mate.
Glad to be here. Glad to join you folks.
I think officially, sorry, Andy Walker, I think officially it's our first doctor on the show as well. That's exciting.
Fake doctor. I mean.
Fake doctor. So just to start off with, maybe if you could just give us a little bit of background just about yourself, your area of expertise, what your experiences have been, and why golf? Why sort of now the focus on golf? What led to that interest?
Sure. So I, grew up being an avid sports person. I did play volleyball and track and field at university. Some, moderate success. Nothing really came easy. I think I always had to think about how to optimize my performance. And that kind of led me down a road of really enjoying doing research in the area. So my background's in kinesiology, and eventually I got a PhD in kinesiology with a focus on sports biomechanics. And my PhD thesis was on customizing shaft stiffness to a golfer's swing 20 years ago. And I really liked the idea of answering a question that could help people. And I also, liked the idea of being a prof, but wanted to do something that had, a potential to do something in industry. And golf was a big industry. I love sports, so those three things kind of all came together. And was lucky enough to have some of my research picked up by golf coaches, and started to get invited to like golf education seminars and events, and had some companies take an interest. So Ping was probably the first company that took me on as a consultant, purchased some of my software. I started working with a company called Body Track. It's a pressure mat, and then got involved with FootJoy. So I'm still a consultant with FootJoy. Started working with some launch monitor companies. And, I kind of became, my research, is kind of focused on equipment, a little bit of putting. And then I really started to notice that there was a lot of low-hanging fruit in terms of speed. And started working with tour players on improving their club head speed. One thing that really stood out to me, if you look at some professional sports like professional baseball, or we could even say cricket. You guys can correct me on this if I'm wrong. If I look at professional baseball and I take an elite pitcher, throws the baseball around, 95 to 100 miles an hour, there's very few people that you would play recreational baseball with who could throw a baseball that fast. It's like the elite of the elite. And I'm sure, absolutely. And I'm sure, I think cricket bowlers get up close to, the low 90s as well, maybe even a bit faster. Yep. But if you go play a recreational game of cricket, there's probably not too many of the guys you're playing with bowling at 90 plus miles an hour. But the average club head speed on the PGA Tour is 115 miles an hour now. Maybe this year will creep up a little closer to 116. But there are lots of guys. I played around today with two guys that had higher than average club head speeds on the PGA Tour. So that's one hint that, there's a lot of potential growth in that area. It's a lot of low-hanging fruit, especially when you consider the fastest club head speeds in the world are up around 160 miles per hour. So we're looking at, 115 to 160. Can we get, the best players in the world to reach a point where, we optimize club head speed for strokes gained off the tee. And right now, I think there are a lot of players who are under that. Eventually, when your club head speed gets high enough, you start to hit the ball far enough, then you need to become even more accurate. There's a bit of a trade-off based on the current course designs, but most golfers aren't really close to that point yet on the PGA Tour. And you can see guys this year in particular. Xander Schauffele is a good example, who's gained a ton of speed, but kept accurate enough with that level of speed to improve his strokes gained off the tee. Bryson DeChambeau was probably the best example of that. So it got really long, and that helped his scoring off the tee. So I started looking at, okay, well, when I was initially working with guys was on just mechanics. What can we do with your mechanics to get you a little bit more club head speed? And it became very apparent that the best way to improve your mechanics was to go through a training program. So instead of just, a session on the range working your drive mechanics, let's do some speed training, overload, overspeed training, work on your mechanics while you're also doing this overload, overspeed training, kind of get the best of both worlds. And had some really, really good success, in particular with Matt Fitzpatrick, who was using the stack system and ended up winning the US Open, in a big part due to his increase in distance. So, that's kind of a bit of a background on me and how I, came about doing a lot of research and a lot of stuff on speed in golf.
Yeah, because I find it quite interesting because 30 years ago, when I was playing and I was playing some reasonable golf, there was nothing about speed training. Like it was you get distance by rhythm and timing. And while that is true to a certain extent, you've got to have tempo. You've got to hit it out of the middle of the club. Actually, the speed of your swing had really nothing to do with it. It was actually, you talk about Matt Fitzpatrick. He was the one who really introduced me to speed training. I hadn't heard of that concept prior to him winning the US Open, and all of a sudden he's talking about the stack, and I'm going, Googling the stack and going, oh, it's unavailable in Australia, because I think everyone probably bought it after that. So that would have been a pretty good sort of kick up for the stack once Matt Fitzpatrick started talking about sort of his improvements.
Yeah, I think we can all think of players like Faldo would be a great example of someone who just won with silky smooth tempo. And we didn't have the stats that we do now. So with Mark Brody really making strokes gained popular and being able to break down facets of the game. So we know that this year Scotty Scheffler is the best driver of the golf ball. Rory McIlroy. Maybe if I looked it up today, Rory maybe has nudged ahead of him after the last tournament. I doubt it, because Scotty finished second, so he's probably still the best driver of the golf. But we can start to quantify, okay, how much of that is due to his distance versus his dispersion, and it's very clear top and strokes gained off the tee hit the ball a really long way. Whereas I think 30 years ago, it was easy to look at a few guys who hit the ball the furthest and say, yeah, that's not a great strategy. Like you might pull out, I can't even think of someone, Brandon Haggy, who's a guy who's got a ton of speed, where you're like, yeah, his driving stats aren't great. See, if you hit it too far, you hit it crooked, and it's just don't go that route. But now, thanks to stats, we have a very clear answer to that question. It's really important to hit the ball further.
And I have watched a couple of YouTube videos where it's actually part of that speed you get backswing, which again, I was always taught, backswing very smooth. You don't try and increase the speed of your backswing because you'll throw your tempo and your rhythm out. But again, that's, from what I understand, that's part of getting that speed through impact.
Yeah. So if you are someone who is blessed with amazing genetics, let's say a Cameron Young, if you can all picture Cameron Young's swing, or maybe Hideki Matsuyama from a few years ago comes to a complete stop, you'd say, well, those folks have very high club head speed, probably in the low 120s. They come to a complete stop. They don't have fast backswings. So maybe it's not important. But if you're someone who's in the low 160s of ball speed, or low teens of club head speed, that is something that you should explore, taking a faster backswing. And what it does is it puts the muscles that you use in the downswing into a state where they're already contracting before you start down. So there's already a level of force buildup. If you take a faster backswing, those downswing muscles turn on and they're firing. So when you start the downswing, they're already applying a high level of force, and that gives you the potential to generate more speed in the downswing. An example I like to give, Andy, is if you were going to flick, you and Steve were going to have a nose flicking contest, and you were allowed to pin your finger to your thumb before you flicked his nose, and Steve had to flick your nose without using his thumb, you'd be able to generate a lot more speed. And the reason is because that thumb allows you to generate a lot of force in the muscles that are going to extend your finger before it starts moving forward. So you start that motion at a high level of force in the muscle. If you don't pin your finger with your thumb, you start that motion without any force in the muscle, and you never have enough time to really develop that force. So it's something that everybody should explore. Now, caveat.
What, the nose flicking competition?
Nose
So you're
flicking,
saying that Steve and I need to get together and have a nose flicking competition.
It's almost like Sasho's been on one of our golf weekends away, Andy Walker, where after the round it's nose flicking.
A couple of pints.
Yeah.
But now, caveat is that it might not work for everybody, because folks can take a faster backswing and it can mess up. I wouldn't be so worried about tempo, but I would be worried about the transition sequence. How do you start your downswing? So if you look at folks like Cameron Young and Hideki Matsuyama, they still have an amazing transition sequence. Lower body goes, upper body, then the arms, then the club. Somebody, a guy that you're playing golf with might have a slow backswing, but they organize their downswing very nicely, and they benefit from that transition sequence, the correct order in which the segments start to move in the downswing. They could try a faster backswing, mess up their downswing sequence, and any little bit of speed they gain from having that higher level of force in the muscles is washed out because their sequencing was disrupted. But it's worth trying, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like then, sort of, in listening to your development of the stack, that it started off that your focus was the PGA Tour or the pros. However, it seems to be, and certainly from my perspective, there's so much application to the everyday golfer as well, and how much they can improve.
Yeah, well, that's why I just decided to try to make it into a commercial product. So I did some stuff with Podrick Harrington, Jason Day, Graham McDowell, through either directly with them or through their trainers, and I would make, probably got the prototype around here somewhere. I'm not sure what's a hardware supply store in Australia, like we have, Home Depot and
Bunnings is the biggest.
No free plugs, Andy Walker. No free plugs.
No free plugs.
Bunnings, if you'd like to get on board, please reach out to the show.
So literally, I would get a golf shaft, head down to Bunnings, get some washers and some bolts, some epoxy, make this club so you can change the weights on it, right? So the principle that I followed with overload and overspeed training was from my track and field background, where we would get specific in terms of the stimulus for the athlete. So I was a multi-event track athlete, and I was 180 pounds when I was competing. A guy on my team was 220 pounds. We both ran the 100 meters in the same time, but when we did overload training, we tow different weight sleds. When we do overspeed training, we had different pull forces. We needed different stimulus to get us, to the same point that we needed at for training. Just as, the same way if you and if Andy and Steve, you folks went into the gym, you wouldn't be lifting the exact same weights. So what I would do, it worked fine with the tour players. I had a Google Doc, like a spreadsheet that we would share. They'd load the weights on, they do their training, and they'd enter what their speeds were for each of those sets, so overload and overspeed. They enter their speeds, and then I come up with their workout for the next day. And I thought, hey, this works out really well if I can get someone to, design something that looks a little bit better than the washers and bolts, and, a little bit better hardware. So I reached out to, long story short, Marty Jertson at Ping. And have a good consulting relationship, do lots of research with Ping. He actually is a phenomenal golfer. He's played in 6 major championships, made the cut the last time the PGA Championship was at Bethpage Black, in part due to speed that he gained from trying this overload overspeed training. He's like, hey, this stuff works. Let me help you out with this product. So he engineered this amazing club, the Stack, and we brought on a third guy, Roger Cottam, who's an amazing app designer. And we basically took all the processes that I would have dealing with a tour player in terms of like, okay, this is the program philosophy I'm going to use to figure out what weights you need to swing the next day. Here's the philosophies I know to figure out what program this tour player needs. And we applied it into the app using this hardware that Marty engineered, so I could hit all the specific weight conditions that I needed for my training philosophy. And now it's like, 50,000 of me out there sitting in someone's app, so Andy, when you go to do a training session, it's like you're sharing the Google Doc with me, and I'm, in the background going, all right, Andy, here's your next workout,
Yeah.
And I even cheer for you if you set a record, right? Little videos play to tell you, it's like I'm there telling you how you should swing, what intent to use. So that, once we could get that all functioning in the app with a nice piece of hardware, it just made sense to get it out there to the masses.
Yeah, and I have found like it quite literally the app tells you what to do, what to work on next. Which I found to be really good. But a little story I'll tell you, which happened sort of in about sort of October, November last year, and I did sort of send an inquiry to you guys because I had a little incident that happened when I was using and it was with the step swing that I was on, and I'd done it before and I felt pretty comfortable with it, but I think I'd started to creep a little bit closer. I was using a Garmin G8 G80 launch monitor, so I was creeping a little bit too close to the Garmin G80, and as I sort of took my backswing, I lost a bit of balance and I went forward and I actually hit the Garmin with the stack and the Garmin went absolutely flying, sort of in a bit of a shank direction. So, it wasn't a particularly good swing, but I absolutely destroyed the Garmin, and I had a little bit of in the yellow part at the end that you sort of screw on. I had a little bit of a sort of cut in there, so I had to. Well, Garmin were really good in that sort of they gave me I bought a refurbished device, but then I sort of got in contact with you guys and said, took a couple of photos and said, is this going to be an issue? So, yeah, just something to be careful of when you're doing the step. Just make sure you're balanced. Yeah,
and the G80 is one of the radars that you have very close to the where impact would be.
Yeah, it is. It is. It wasn't my finest moment, but but anyway, it was quite interesting. So, one of the things that we had a brief text message about is that I've been making some swing changes over the last couple of months in order to my swing just wasn't where I wanted it to be, and in my head I thought, I'm just going to take a bit of a break from the stack training. And we had a bit of a text exchange, and you said it would, there'd be an advantage in using the stack whilst you're making swing changes. So can you maybe just tell us about, what your thoughts are? Because to me, logically, trying to increase your swing while making swing changes, it doesn't make sense. But obviously, I don't have the level of knowledge that you've got.
Yeah. Yes. So my philosophy, my thoughts on this are that everybody who's using the stack falls somewhere in the continuum of my swing is awesome slash the thing that's really holding me back is more speed. You know, so this could be the people who fall into this category are usually like former PGA players or head pros who are now in their 50s and 60s. Swing's great. There's lots of 70-year-old guys that I know who haven't missed a fairway since 2014, right? They're just dead straight, but they're carrying at 190 yards, right? They used to be very good golfers. They still have the swing. So those folks should just be focused, or in a lot, and also fall in this category are some female golfers who, again, they're carrying the ball maybe 130 yards and have never missed a fairway. So it's like, look, you just need to focus on speed, right? And if things start to miss the face a little bit, you're still going to be better off. On the other end of the continuum are folks that can still speed train, but can put a lot of concerted thought and focus while they're speed training, while they're using the stack system, into their mechanics. This is beginning golfers, a lot of juniors, or someone like yourself who's going through a swing change. And the people on this end of the continuum are still focused, on like, okay, I want to swing with some speed. I want to swing with a concerted effort, as hard as I would swing on the golf course. It might not be your max. Maybe it's a couple miles per hour slower, but I see the stack as an excellent way to ingrain positive swing changes, and I've used it a ton with my own kids or even players that I'm working with for this. So, for example, my daughter just turned 11, and she has a bit of an over the top kind of bit of a slice motion. But when your club head speed is 75 miles an hour, it's not that big of a deal. You kind of play this weak fade, but you're still hitting the fairway. But it's not awesome. So when she did her stack training over the winter, I had her really focused on swinging with an in-tail path. Simple, drew an arrow away from roughly where the club would be at address, straight back. So I want to take it straight back, but then another arrow at about a 30-degree angle pointing towards the ball. So, hey, she was supposed to really focus. She's still trying to swing very hard, but she's kind of thinking about the path of the club head while she's swinging. Other things that everybody can work on are your setup, your posture at setup. You can still swing as hard as you want, but before you take the club back, what kind of posture am I in? Grip. So juniors especially, or if you're going through a grip change, Andy, hey, it can be very uncomfortable while you're hitting balls, and a lot of people will re-grip. So, hey, focus on your grip. This is, I'm trying to weaken my grip, strengthen my grip, whatever it is, before every rep with the stack. All the way up to a position you're trying to get to at the top, right? So, you get the countdown timer with the stack. So you take your swing, you got 15 seconds, check a few times. Maybe you're trying to get your elbow in a certain position. Maybe you're trying to get a certain wrist condition at the top. Hey, get that feel, then swing as hard as you can. There's no reason why you can't reinforce some of these things. And even with tour players, they all go through rough patches with their driver. Golf's a hard sport. It's easy to get off by a little bit. The face is 1 degree more open than you thought. That's going to make it tough to play on tour. And you've got some swing change you're trying to incorporate. Well, instead of hitting 100 drivers, hit 60 drivers, take 40 swings with the stack as part of your, trying to relearn that new movement. Now, everybody still needs to recalibrate with a ball. It's not like you can just be like, right, not hitting any balls, let's just go do some stack training. But I think it can be very helpful, especially when the swing changes you're trying to incorporate are, say, larger body movements, like an association between the lower body, like you want to get your lower body going before the upper body, or something that's related to path, trying to change path or trying to change speed. Those things can make it tough to make good quality contact with the ball. Might mess up with your low point. You might start hitting at the heel. And that can be a real impedance to reinforcing that learning. So I see it all the time with kids. They make a great swing, but they hit it directly off the toe of the club. So the ball goes nowhere. It feels terrible, but they did exactly what the coach wanted them to do. But even though the coach is like, great job, Johnny, that was a great swing, Johnny's like, well, I shanked it. The ball went nowhere. It's very tough for them to be like, yes, that was a good swing. But if all you're looking at is the speed number, right? And it felt like a good swing, maybe, it was a little bit off of where low point usually is for you. Hey, that's right. Reinforce it. That was a great swing. You can set up a camera if you want. You get that speed feedback. And then when you go to hit balls, you've got all these positive reps. Then you just have to recalibrate a little bit. It could be just, hey, stand an inch further away. You know what I mean? Swing half an inch lower to the ground. So everybody's on that continuum. Just focus on speed, or all the way to, hey, you're doing your stack training, you got a heavy focus on some other swing mechanics.
That's actually a really good point. Kind of resonated with me on that one a little bit in terms of isolating the specific element of the swing that you're trying to work on when you're practicing and you're training, because just that example that you gave of, you might have put a good swing together, but it came off the toe, so the result looked bad when you're hitting a ball. That affects the way that you react to it. Definitely something that I've felt when I've been trying to work on certain swings with sequencing and those types of things. But to find a way to isolate that specific element that you're working on actually is super important. So, that's a really good reminder, I think, of some of the basics of how to practice. In terms of the stack system that you've put together, though, Sasho, so it's not just about speed, which I think is interesting. There's also a putting element which you've brought into the fold. So that to me seems really what's the right words? It's an interesting kind of a combination between the top end of the bag of speed with the driver and now looking at putting. So, kind of what inspired that shift to putting as well?
Yeah, both Marty and I are golf geeks, and there's a lot of optimization that everybody can do in terms of how they spend their time, and one of those areas that I feel a lot of improvement can be made is putting, in terms of score, especially when I see how people tend to spend their time practicing their putting. So with stack putting, where it comes from is, look, let's figure out the best way to practice in the most efficient way, the practice in a way that's going to give you the most gains on the course, and also give you insights. And the third thing is, let's gamify it so it's fun. So this comes from an understanding of if you break down putting and figure out what's under the control of the golfer and what matters the most to a putt going in, and let's focus on those things when we practice. Let me be less obtuse about that. So when you're standing over putt and you hit it, what you're under the control of is how fast you're moving your putter. So you're trying to launch the ball at a certain speed to go in the hole. You decide on how fast you're going to swing the putter, right? And you're trying to repeat that. No one really knows what the speed is, 8 miles an hour, 2.4 meters per second, but we have a sensation, a feel for how fast we want to swing the putter. So we decide that, and then we need to hopefully launch it on our intended start line. We decide, look, I want to launch the ball this way, and the things that control that primarily are the face angle, right? Is the face open or closed, the path, and where it hits on the face. Where it hits on the face and the path are not that important. And that's very non-intuitive. So you can miss the center of the putter face by 1.1 centimeters. It's just a standard blade, like a ping answer putter, by 1.1 centimeters before that effect on the ball is so big that you'll miss a 12-foot putt. Okay? So then you have to ask yourself, well, how often do you miss the center of the face by 1.1 centimeters? It's virtually never. So I'm in my lab right now. I've had hundreds of golfers come through the lab. The worst putter will only miss the face by 1.1 centimeters, the center of that face, like 1 in every 100 putts. A tour player is never, ever going to be burning a hole in the center. Path, in order to miss, I'm just giving an example, a 12-foot putt, something you think, well, maybe I'll sink this, right? You need to have your path off by a full 3.5 degrees, either cutting it inside out or, going the other way to pull that 12-foot putt offline enough to miss it. Nobody has their path that messed up. Okay. So if you're, you have to, bring this back to practice. If you're grinding on hitting the center of the face, hitting, 6-foot putts over and over again through a set of tees, or working on your stroke path direction all the time, I would look over there and say, that's not going to help you sink more putts, right? Two big things are green reading. So green reading probably accounts for half of all putts that are missed on the PGA Tour. Let me give you an example. So PGA Tour players, they're 50% from 8 feet on tour. 8-foot putt, they're only sinking half of them. If I bring them into my lab, or if you allow them to hit the same 8-foot putt that has a bit of break over and over again, they're going to get up to 95%. So right away, why are they missing then these 8-footers at a rate of 50%, when if you let them hit it over and over again, they get closer to 100%? Because green reading is so important. Speed control is so important. If you want to get better at those two things, you need to see more putts. That's, so if you're spending 15-minute practicing and you're hitting the same 8-footer over and over again, grinding on your impact spot, grinding on your stroke path, that's not helping you get better at green reading. It's not helping you get better at speed control. So with stack putting, that's the focus. We give you 18 putts. We tell you what putts to hit. So you go in the app and it's like, hey, hole 1, 6 feet uphill left to right. Walk around the green, find a hole where you can hit a putt that's 6 feet uphill left to right. And we have this really easy interface that allows you to say why it missed. You launched it too fast. You launched it too far right. Maybe you misread it. And then you go on to the next hole. Hole 2, 12 feet straight downhill. You go find that spot in the green. And it's really quick. You start at the hole. We give you a little description on how to calibrate your steps, right? So I know in Australia, you folks are used to meters, but hopefully feet isn't too bad. So if you've got a 9-foot putt, you just walk out 3 strides from the hole. That's going to be about 9 feet. And then after you go through a few sessions, they take 10 to 15 minutes. You get great insights. All of a sudden, the app can tell you, hey, look, you're leaving all your uphill putts short. You tend to miss to the right. So you get these great insights that you then can correct. So not only are you practicing in a very efficient way, you get all this great feedback from the app. So, putting was one of those things that we felt was really an area that we could help people practice better and get more insights on. So that's why we included stack putting in the app.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And I know, we've had a lot of conversations about putting, and I've had a few battles myself with the flat stick over the course of the show. So with the stack putting, is this an add-on to the speed system? Is it a standalone? So as say a potential customer looking at the stack, would you, because there's no hardware purchase with the putting, it's the app element. So is it something that you need to purchase the speed system as well, or is it a standalone option for people?
It's a standalone option if you want it to be. So it's $59 US a year, and we've got a 30-day free trial. Remind me, Steve, and I'll make sure you folks get a something you can put into the podcast so folks can try it for free.
Perfect.
For 30 days. But it's also it's free to all speed users. So if you have a stack system and you're using it for speed training, you get full access to putting.
Yeah, fantastic. Which leads me to the next question. Sorry, is there more to come on the stack? More products? We've got the speed system. Yeah. The putting will be stack chipping, stack bunker play, stack approaches.
Yes, yeah, we got all sorts of ideas. The next one we're releasing, we're just finalizing testing on. We have our own radar now that connects Bluetooth to the app, and we've got a wedge mode. So the ball speed that measures is extremely accurate. It's within 1 mile an hour, 95% of the time to a TrackMan or a flight scope or a quad. And we've also realized that the carry distance is also quite accurate to a normalized TrackMan, up to about 130 yards. It's within a couple of yards. So we're coming out with this pretty cool wedge mode. So stack wedging, where you'll be able to. We're gamifying it, so you'll be able to use that little radar, and hopefully, we haven't sorted out the details, but you might be able to use some other radars as well. It's not going to compare to the experience of an indoor simulator, that the TrackMan has, where you'll see the ball land, but super quick to put down on the range, a very affordable alternative if you want to dial in your wedge distances. And with wedging, it's that distance control that's most important. For folks that are kind of in your handicap range, if you've got 50 yards, you're not really worried about missing it 20 feet left or right. You're worried about, okay, hey, can I get this to land 50 yards away, and starting to associate a feeling with each of those distances. Everybody's got a laser now, so they know how far away the flag is, so you can really dial in your distances with the wedges. So we've got that coming out. Learning libraries in there, so I've got a few dozen videos giving folks some swing thoughts and feels that they can put into the speed training. We've got lots of cool things I'm working on.
Yeah, I find that like wedge play for me, and even we just talked about briefly about my round yesterday before we jumped on. I probably lost 3 or 4 shots yesterday just in my wedge distances. And that would be, and look, I'm trying to incorporate the clock system into my wedge play to try and sort of dial in my distances. And look, I probably haven't spent the time that I need to sort of putting in, to know exactly where I'm meant to be. But yeah, certainly that wedge system, I'm looking forward to seeing that come out.
Yeah, great. And we're trying to make it as fun as possible, gamify it, so that you can do, just like putting, you can do a 15-minute session and get some real benefit out of the 15 minutes.
Yeah, and certainly putting as well, because I haven't actually tried the putting, the stack putting. It's but part of sort of the improvement that I've made in my putting is I've incorporated aim point, and that's done wonders for my green thing. But then I've also worked a lot on my speed. And that was exactly what you just talked about, speed and green reading, and that's made a huge difference to my putting. So yeah, I might have to relook at the stack putting and incorporate that into my training regime.
Yeah, you're missing out. We also have a toggle option, so you can include your aim point read in terms of what grade the slope's at. So you do your aim point, and you can actually, there's a little toggle in the app in half-degree increments to say what you thought your aim point read was in terms of the slope.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Now, coming back to sort of, I guess, me personally, and one of the things that I've
hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. This is a this is a
yeah.
We have a
isn't
special
about the podcast at all.
Yeah, we have a special guest on the show, but let's talk about me.
Yeah, well, it's half of my podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, fair enough. It's fine. It's fine. No, you knock yourself out, Andy Walker. It's fantastic.
But it more so as I get a little bit older, I'm finding that injuries are starting to creep into sort of I've always had certain injuries, and back's one of those, but I'm finding that they're becoming a bit more common. With as I age, so incorporating stuff like the stack, there's been a couple of challenges with injuries not necessarily as a result of the stack, but just because I'm getting older. So as a, someone in, 50s or older, how would you recommend incorporating the stack into their training program, but also making sure that they're looking after their body as well?
Yeah. Well, warm up is critical, and that's why with the stack we have a couple of features. We have the warm up video that plays, and I put a lot of effort into that. So it's 15 minutes, and I wanted to remove barriers. So all you need is the stack, right? And you don't have to get down on the ground. So I put a lot of thought into, okay, I'm out in the range and it's wet on the ground or it's dirty. I got some, my white pants on. I'm not going to do the warm up. No, you can do the warm up anywhere. You can do it in your garage. You can do it in your living room. You can do it in a hotel room. So making sure that you are sweating before you start. And then we also have, before you go into your session, a little button that says certify my warm up. And so what we've done there is we know how fast you were swinging in your last session. The app tracks everything. And we have a weight that's called the standard stack weight that you swing in every session of your program. So Andy, if you swung, the 195 in your last session at 100 miles an hour, and you're doing certify my warm up, the app's like, okay, we need 2 swings with the 195 near 100 miles an hour. And we got a little algorithm. So I think it would be 97 or 98. And until you make 2 swings in a row at 97 or 98, your warm up's not certified. So we've got to wait in the app. Hey, make sure you're warmed up. Then let's actually see if you're warmed up before we're even allowed to start your speed training session. The other thing is volume. So if you're stacking and you're playing a lot of golf and you are doing other physical activities, like you're going to the gym or doing Peloton or something, that's the biggest issue is the volume. Once you're warmed up, probably not the intensity. So there are thousands of golfers that get elbow tendonitis or hurt their wrist just from beating balls on a mat or on the range. So you could be doing great over the off season. There's probably not much of an off season where you guys live, but if you're just doing some stacking, going to the gym, but then all of a sudden you start to insert 18 holes of golf a week in addition to your other stuff, and you're also doing a lot of stuff on the range, then it's okay to kind of pare back the stacking. You can cut down from 3 sessions a week to maybe you're only doing a session every 4 days. That's important to make sure that the volume's dropping. We also have a speed priming session, which is a 7-minute workout that you can replace. So you could do 1 regular stack session, 1 speed priming session a week to try and maintain your speed during the golf season. Also have a program called Flex. So if you find that for your particular body that you're more sensitive to swinging faster, so that it's the higher swing speeds with the lighter weights that you find, that's very taxing on my body. If you're in a Flex program, before every session, we've got this matrix of 9 workout options. So you go in, hey, I'm going to start session number 3 in the Flex. You can choose low volume. So you can do an 8-minute workout that's just overload, an 8-minute workout that's just over speed, or an 8-minute mixed, all the way up to, there's this 3x3 grid, all the way up to a 25-minute workout where it's both overload and overspeed. So if you're more sensitive to overload or more sensitive to overspeed, you can choose for that particular workout to leave the stuff that may be a little more stressful on your body as you're golfing a lot. So, it is something you have to be aware of, making sure that you are, if you've got some pre-existing back issues and you've got some piriformis stretches or some kind of stuff that a physiotherapist has given you, hey, make sure you do that before or after you do the stack session to kind of be preventative. But it's physical activity, and more people hurt themselves golfing all the time. So it's about being smart and being preventative and doing the right things. and hopefully you stay in the right side of the injuries.
Yeah, because I do when I've been consistent with my stack workouts, it has a tendency to only be a couple of times a week. I've never found that, and that's just from a time pressure perspective. We all lead busy lives, and trying to fit everything in usually doesn't work. So I've been when I've been consistent doing 2 stack sessions a week, but then I sort of start to feel is that not enough? Because you hear about some people doing 3 a week, and 3 is probably the ideal. So, do you still feel as though 2 is sufficient on well, consistency? There's another thing I need to work on, but that's a different conversation. But is two enough?
Yeah, I feel 2 is pretty ideal. Like I've got no problem with, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, so I really like, if you take 2 days off, so if you go Monday, then you take off Tuesday, Wednesday, go Thursday, take off Friday, Saturday, go Sunday. That's a pretty good cadence. So 2 workouts every 6 days. It's also no problem. Continue slow gains if you go Monday and then you take 2 days off. So you go Thursday and then you go Monday again. That's fine. It's 2 days off and 3 days off. If you're putting if you're doing some other golf swings, if you're playing golf and you're doing some other stuff in between those, that's fine. There's lots of, because we've got 45,000 stackers. We're approaching close to 30 million track swings, and we've got the systems and process to analyze what everybody's doing. And you have a time window. You don't have to go every other day. So that time window, you can go Monday and then go again Thursday. You're not going to lose any grit. So we realize that not everybody's the same. We don't know what you're doing every minute of every day. I don't know if you're squatting to max. I don't know if you're going for a 4-hour bike ride. I don't know if you're getting 3 hours sleep for a couple of days in a row. Maybe you went to a bachelor party. Who knows what you're doing, right? So we give the flexibility to be like, all right, train on Monday. You could train as early as Wednesday, but maybe, you didn't sleep right Tuesday night. So you can train Thursday or even Friday morning. That's fine. There needs to be a little bit of adaptability to allow you to match the training to your schedule. Now, if I will say this, if you did a really awesome stack workout once a week, you go, okay, Monday's going to be my speed day, and you do an awesome stack workout every Monday for 52 weeks, I would expect you to not gain very much speed at all, maybe 0. And if people are probably more familiar with weightlifting, imagine and we'll space it out just a little bit so people understand. If you do a chest workout, bench press, flies, something, every 10 days, right? So you can get every 10 days for a year. That's a lot of workouts, but you're not going to get that much stronger. You're just going to get sore, right? Do this hard chest workout, get sore, recover, and then 10 days later, you're going to be repeating the same thing, right? You're not going to make much progress. You need to get your body into a pattern of, okay, do a workout, mostly recover, do another workout, right? So you can stack those gains, right? So your body is adapting to stuff. It's the same with anything, being exposed to the sun. If you haven't seen sun in 3 months and you decide, right, I'm going to go for 3 hours in the sun every 10 days, you're just going to go burn, heal, burn, heal, burn. Same thing with your hands. If every 10 days you decide to do something, you're going to go chop some wood. Okay, you'll get blisters, hands healed. Next, you get blisters again. You need to gradually introduce the stimulus and then have the appropriate amount of rest so you develop a callus instead of a blister.
What I have found though is that because we talked about sort of consistency, and I haven't been that consistent with my stack workouts, but when I have taken a break, I haven't maintained my top speed that I had achieved through my sessions, but I don't go back to where I was. I do have gains, sort of like that elastic band concept where, you stretch it to a certain level and it never goes back to to where it was. So is that something that that you've found across, all your data, is that when people, that they do their training, even if they take a break, they don't go back to where they were?
Yep, that's certainly possible. And there are different sources of those speed gains. So the ones that are most likely to stick around are changes to your mechanics. So maybe you've learned how to use the ground a little bit better. You've done a little bit better job of managing the lag in your swing, and you're not really aware of it, but you've made some positive changes to your swing mechanics, and those can stay with you. Something's clicked. If it's more of how fast your nervous system is communicating with the muscles, that's probably going to go away. And the actual physical changes to the muscle fibers themselves, that can take a long time to develop. You stop training, that's probably going to go away. But if you figured out some new mechanics, then those can stay with you.
What about a time of day? Is that have you found that golfers find a time of day, or that's very individual? Because I noticed in the stack you can put in like notes, and I always record when I do my stack session, whether it be morning or afternoon, and then sort of how I feel, and a few notes, which I found really handy. I mean, most of my really good sessions have been in the afternoon.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah, I
common.
also find that my availability is mainly in the morning. So I don't know. I sort of feel that maybe afternoon sessions are better for me. Again, is there something consistent there, or is that very individual?
It's not very individual. There will be some people that will have faster speeds in the morning, but it is certainly the norm. Late afternoon, early evening, for speed to be the fastest. But that's you can explore that. Because there are 18 sessions in the foundation. You'll be able to know, hey, geez, you do 2 or 3 in the morning, and you're like, wow, my speeds just aren't there. And it is important as much as you can to do your speed training when your speeds are the fastest. Um, but you're probably better off if you do a stack session on a Monday and you're like, oh, next I can train is Thursday morning. And then but I don't like training in the morning, so I'll wait till Saturday afternoon. No, don't go Monday to Saturday. You're better off Monday, even though it's not your best time of day, train Thursday morning. Don't wait all the way till Saturday afternoon, because now that you've got competing variables there, right? But and also how you feel doesn't necessarily correlate to the speed you're able to generate. That's why having the radar feedback, which you need when you do use the stack system, is so important. So, for example, a lot of the tour players that I work with will do a stack session after they play. So if they have a morning round on a Thursday or a morning round on a Friday, they'll do the stack session in the afternoon. Yeah, you just walked 10 kilometers, potentially out on a golf course. Legs might feel a little bit tired. You might feel some overall system fatigue, but it's not necessarily going to impact your top end club head speed. Very rarely, you might feel tired. I just walked 17 holes. You're on the 18 tee box, but your club head speed's probably not down. There are very few people who are like, it could happen if you're really out of shape. Maybe that 18 holes is really slowed you down. So figure that out using the app. For example, I will feel more tired after walking 18 holes, but it's a great time for me to do a stack session because I don't need to do an extra warm up. Walk off the course, go to the range, crank out 15-minute stack session, and it's done. And I'm swinging fast, and I've gotten good use of that time. That's way better for me than getting up at 6 a.m. and trying to do a stack session, even though I'm pretty alert. My body's just not ready to go. It'll take me a half hour to warm up properly to do a stack session. And I know still after that half hour, my speeds will still be reduced to where they could be later in the afternoon.
Interesting. Yeah, because and that's pretty much my what my experience has been is that when I try and get up early, and a lot of the time it's getting up before the kids get up to be able to, whether it be, doing a workout or a stack session, it's more convenient for me to get up in the morning before the kids get up and get it done. Otherwise, I wait till later in the day and things come up and usually they don't get done. So I figure that it's better to actually do it in the morning and get it done rather than not do it at all.
Yeah. It's a great way to make sure you are getting your stack. Make it a habit after you play, right? It depends on the course you're at, or after you hit a range balls, and build that in, because it's quick. If you've hit 40 range balls, odds are you're warm enough to do a stack session. You might do, 2 or 3. Your certified warm up will take you like 5 swings, right? And then just build that in, because most stack sessions are done in 15 minutes. So make it a habit to say, okay, when I do a range session, when I play 18 holes, and most of the time you don't, golf is variable enough, if most people are being honest, where you don't know you're going to finish 18 at 4:30, right? So you should have some buffer built into your round anyway. So when you finish 18, or you're playing 9, or you're going to the range, say, okay, look, I know I got to leave here. If you're on the range, I know I got to leave here in an hour. Well, I'm only going to hit balls for 45 minutes. Make it a habit. Do your stack session when you're done.
I think that's called the 19th hole for a lot of people.
Right. Hey, tell your buddy, hey, look, I'll catch up. You go in there, you get half a pint on. I'll catch up.
Yeah.
Well, it could be more than half a pint in 15 minutes. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah. Now, look, I think that's a really interesting idea, because and we talk about sort of our high performance center that both Steve and I have in our garages, in that we've got a net practice mat set up, so we're able to sort of jump out into the garage and hit some golf balls when it's convenient. So that could be something that I'll sort of have a think about how I can incorporate the stack into, or straight after I have a training session, a practice session with the net, because that could be something I've that I haven't done before that could help those swing speeds.
Yeah, the longest part of the stack session is the warm up. If you're starting in the morning, it's probably taking you at least 20 minutes to, like, okay, I've done some stretching, you've done the app warm up, I'm sweating, now I can do my stack workout. If you're hitting balls in the net, you probably don't need to do the full stack warm up before you hit some 40-yard wedges, right? So a lot of the warm up can happen. I'm sure you do some warm up, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. You can hit 40-yard wedges without, being dripping in sweat. But those, as you hit, 15, 20 balls, and you kind of work your way through the bag, that really is serving as a good chunk of your warm up before you do the stack session.
Now, Steve, do you have any?
Yeah, I do.
Questions. I seem to be taking over this interview a little bit.
That's totally fine. Totally fine. As we said earlier, my voice is not at its highest ebb at the moment, but that's okay. I've got a question from the Pilgrims. Now, Sasho, our show is a pilgrimage. We've decided it's not just a journey; it's a pilgrimage towards better golf. Therefore, our listeners, we lovingly refer to as our pilgrims. So the pilgrims, knowing that you were coming on the show, you've answered many of their questions already, but there is one that's still sticking out that they're interested to know about, and that is the stack is about generating speed for distance. Okay, we've established that. Distance is a big issue in the game of golf at the moment, and being talked about a lot around the trap. So as someone who is a distance proponent, how do you feel about the rollback of the golf ball?
Yeah, I'm in one sense indifferent about the rollback. I don't think the rollback is going to accomplish what people think it will. I'm still going to like golf, enjoy golf. It's going to be fun. But you need to ask yourself, we're rolling back the ball to accomplish X. What is X? And then we can see if that's going to accomplish it or not. So a lot of times my home course, can your Pilgrims translate between yards and meters?
Absolutely. They're very, very intelligent.
Okay. That's what I thought, I might even guess. I think our course is probably about 5,900 meters from the standard men's tees. We've got a set of black tees that no one plays because the course just plays so long from those tees. So there is not a distance issue at my golf course. Otherwise, we just went through a couple of hole renovations. We're looking at new tee blocks. No one on the board, no one, we've got 600, no one's saying, hey, geez, we got to extend these holes. This course is getting too easy. So rolling the ball back for us, and we're a bunch of avid golfers. There's there's a handful of plus handicaps, lots of good golfers at the course. No one's like, yep, this needs to happen. Maybe there are other courses around the world where the members are like, yeah, this is just, everything's way too easy. So that's one aspect of it. But so let's look at, I think most of it comes from, for example, at the PGA Championship this year, it came up again. They just destroyed the course. What did Xander was 20 under, 21 under, 22 under, somewhere around there. And it, Bryson hitting driver 8-iron, even though it's probably not an 8-iron, into the par 5 and making eagle. We got to roll the ball back. Okay. What people are missing is that right now, what's controlling distance, limiting distance on the PGA Tour is not clubhead speed. I spoke about it at the start of the episode, but right now the average on the PGA Tour is 115. People can swing it. There's people out there that can swing at 160, a reasonable amount of them. That's a big room. That's a lot of room for an elite group of golfers. We just have to find 200 golfers ish who can swing on average 130 miles an hour, knowing that there are hundreds and hundreds of people that can swing over 130, right? So, they slow the ball back, and I think the testing now is, marginally going to slow the ball down. They're not making a big enough leap. You want to roll the ball back and fix problems, you probably have to slow it down by like 50 yards, not by the 10 or 20 yards that they're going to slow it down by, right? You'd have to slow it down so much that even if the average tour player is out there playing at 130 miles an hour, that the ball is only going to go 100 or 300 yards. So this is what will happen. And it was on display at the Players this year. Okay, what's limiting the current driving distance on tour is how far the ball goes in conjunction with course design. So if you look at hole 18, there were very few players the elite players who hit driver. Fitzpatrick hit driver. Shoffley hit a 3-wood. Scheffler hit a 3-wood. I think some of them even hit like 4-irons or hybrids, right? There was another hole 16, I believe, where Shoffley didn't hit driver. Ryan Harmon hit driver. Matt Fitzpatrick hit driver. So if you slow the ball down, right, these guys that are hitting hybrids and 3-woods to 300 yards now are just going to grab their driver, and they're just going to swing faster. The dispersion increases not because of club head speed primarily. Dispersion increases because of how far the ball goes. So at around 330 yards, when a ball, because it follows a cone, that's kind of where strokes gain starts to diminish because you start missing too many fairways. If you roll the ball back, so let's say Shoffley right now is hitting his driver on a hole 330 yards, and you roll the ball back, so now he's hitting his driver 310 yards, then he'll just increase his club head speed, which he can do. So now he's going 130 yards again, or go from 3-wood to driver. Hole 18 at TPC, if you rolled the ball back, he goes, okay, I'll just hit driver because It's now going to go the same distance as his 3-wood. But Brian Harman, who hit his driver everywhere, he's not in the PGA Tour anymore. So there's this, we want to see the shot shaping. I remember Rory hit like a 4-iron into a hole last year, and they're like, yeah, that's what we want to see, the shot shaping. That's what you might see, but it's only going to be from guys who can swing the club at 130 miles an hour. That's because they're just the guys have the ability to do that and be straight. Tony Finau is an excellent example of someone last year. He had a club head speed in the high teens, 118, 119. Do you know what his club head speed is this year? 124. That's what it was in the PGA overnight.
Whoa.
Overnight, because he had the potential. He last year, over the last 3 or 4 years, you could see he'd post these videos where he could get the club head up to 140 miles an hour. So he's playing at 118, 119 because that's, like he's hitting fairways. That was a bit slow for him, but he can instantaneously go, right, I'm going to start playing at 124. And there's a lot of guys where if you slow the ball down, right, and they kept playing at their current club head speed, they'd start to hit more fairways, right? But they would go shorter. So then to re-optimize their strokes gain, they just swing harder, right? Rory increases club head speed. Xander increases club head speed. They're not getting any less accurate. Xander got faster and hitting more fairways. If you slowed the ball down, instead of swinging at 124, he'd probably train and improve and swing at 128. So the ball roll back, until you roll it back to a point where if guys are swinging at 130, it's only going 300 yards, it's not going to have the intended effect. All it's going to do is weed out players who can't swing crazy fast.
And that is possibly the most eloquent answer to that question that I think we've heard in the debate so far. So thank you, Sasho, for that. I think that makes a hell of a lot of sense, that it's actually going to have some pretty significant unintended consequences.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to help the stack. So I'm fine with them rolling it back.
That's a good point.
At my course, we've got a bunker that's, about 200 yards off the tee. It's probably, you need to hit it 230 to carry it. And there's probably going to be 30 or 40 guys that eventually when that ball rollback hits, they're going to be landing in that bunker overnight, if they play the new ball, and they're going to say, geez, how do I get that speed back? And they're going to grab a stack system, I hope. Because, anyway, I don't think it's going to have all of the intended consequences that they want.
So do you see this, the whole trend of increased club speed? I know, take, the ball roll back, leave that to the side, but there's been a trend for increased club head speed. Do you see that continuing, and we end up getting the PGA Tour up into the 120s or maybe higher? Or is there an ideal swing speed that you can have?
There is not, and it's very individualistic. So Shopley is a great example where in general, the fastest players on tour are the most accurate. So Mark Brody's got a great part of his book, Every Shot Counts, where he looks at deviation angle, right? So that's probably a better measure of accuracy than how far offline you are. So then with deviation angle, you can compare someone who hits a 300 to someone who hits a 200. The guy that hits a 200 is going to find more fairways, but is he hitting it straighter? So you measure the angle offline. The ball finishes and you go, right, what's the angle between, the line down the middle of the fairway and where that ball ended up relative to where it was hit? And Brody's got in one of his chapters, he shows, look, the guys that swing it faster have tighter deviation angles. Xander has, relative to what you'd guess for the PGA Tour average, he is able to take advantage of more club head speed because he's more accurate. So the more accurate somebody is, ironically, the faster they can swing. What all players are trying to do is optimize strokes gained. So, once you get to ball speeds, I'm assuming everybody listening, strokes gain is just a way to quantify how many strokes you're gaining on the field, and this applies to everybody, not just tour players. based on a certain aspect of your game. So the faster ball speed gets, once you get over, so we'll say club head speed. So, once you start to get in the low 120s, things start to level off, where every little bit more club head speed you get, the amount of strokes you would gain because of that gets less. So it kind of starts to hit a plateau. And maybe once you start to get up around, 190, it's almost flat, right? So you're like, look, great, you're hitting it super far, but the average tour player is probably not going to be accurate enough, so more balls are going to be going OB, if that makes sense. But it's not directly a function of club head speed. It's a function of how far the ball is going. So if everybody hit a wiffle ball, if we made this extreme, no one would miss a fairway. You could hit a wiffle ball with 140 mile an hour club head speed, but it's not, you know what I mean? It's not going to go far enough to miss a 40-yard wide fairway. Does that make, you could hit it crazy offline.
Yep.
So it's not the club head speed, it's a function of actually how far the ball is going. So once you start to, and the way the holes are designed. So once you start to get balls that are going like 330 yards, all of a sudden with those deviation angles, now strokes gained kind of starts to drop. You need to be super accurate to take advantage of that club head speed. The more you slow the ball down, the more you select, the more the PGA Tour and is going to start to select for people who are decent at the other aspects, but can really hit it crazy far. If you made the ball super bouncy, right? So if golf balls, if you and I could hit the golf ball 400 yards with 110 mile an hour club head speed, then distance becomes not a factor. Hey, everybody can. And if you tried to swing, if Bryson's drives were going 500 yards, you'd see him and he'd be hitting, 5 irons off tees. There'd be no benefit in hitting a driver because it'd be so far offline. He'd never be able to take advantage of it. Right. So you and I would be hitting driver to get it down there. He'd be hitting a 5 iron. But we'd see more holes like 18 and 16 at TPC, where, hey, if you're accurate enough, like Brian Harman, you can hit your driver down there. Guy like Shoffley just says, no, I'm going to hit my 3-wood.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I look at what Bryson was doing sort of after he won the US Open, and he was all speed, all bolt. He was just after maxing everything. But he seems to have pared that back a little bit, and he's now playing what I think is better golf, which I think you saw at the PGA Championship.
Yeah, he's not that much slower. So he's still, averaging just over 190 ball speed. But if you put him in a long drive contest, he could still get over 210 ball speed. So what's interesting with Bryson is even though you might see him hit 190 and you think, wow, that is crazy fast ball speed, it's still at about 90% effort, right? So that's one thing that the stack focuses on. We want to raise your maximum clubhead speed so that you can swing at a lower percentage of effort, but that lower percentage of effort is still faster than your current clubhead speed. So Bryson is very under control at high 120 clubhead speeds, 125, 126. That's nowhere near his max, so he has really high control over his ball. He's an extremely straight hitter, which allows him to play at higher ball speeds and still keep the ball in play.
Wow.
It's crazy to think that you can have that sort of speed at 90%, but anyhow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I've got a huge amount out of this chat. I've got a lot to go back and relook at what I'm doing with the stack and look at how I'm doing it in regards to sort of time of day and maybe incorporating into after my sort of sessions in the net. But B, I'm definitely going to have a look at putting. So if someone was to interested in the stack and wants to sort of invest in the system, how would they do that, Sasho?
If you're if you go to thestacksystem.com, we can figure out, we've got a place on our webpage will tell you where the best place is to order locally. You can reach out if you have any questions. Reach out to info@thestacksystem.com. We've also got some, pretty cool social media accounts to follow on Instagram and Twitter. So no matter where you're listening in the world, we should be able to get you a stack. I think in Australia it's the House of Golf, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I got mine through the House of Golf. Yep.
Yeah. So reach out to those folks directly if you want, House of Golf Australia, and get on the speed train with Andy.
Love it.
You better believe it. We now, Sasho, have listeners in, would you believe it, 22 countries around the world. So certainly not exclusively Australian. And I've got no doubt after this fantastic interview that number will increase. So Sasho MacKenzie, thank you so much for coming on the Missing Links Golf Show. We've learned a huge amount. I've got no doubt the Pilgrims will have taken a huge amount out of it, and I'm sure that there'll be a few additional stackers that'll come on board as a result of this chat as well. So I've just got to convince the family to invest for me for Father's Day. I think that's the
absolutely.
That's the trick. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, Sasha. Look, I personally, really appreciate your time. I mean, I've got a lot out of the stack to date, but I just feel as though my knowledge and what I'm going to get out of it is sort of just gone through the roof. So yeah, really, really appreciate your time.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Pleasure. Well, Andy Walker, that was certainly an informative conversation, I've got to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So much good information there. A lot of technical information, but also I think a lot of value to take out of it, just in practical steps, and certainly for me, practical steps to take to improve what I'm doing with the stack.
Yeah, for sure. I also, another point that I think needs to be made, congratulations, Andy Walker, for taking the lead on such a fantastic interview. I know I was a bit of a passenger throughout that because I pretty much had no voice for most of it.
Yeah.
So well done for all the Pilgrims there. I was present and accounted for, but I didn't have a huge amount of voice.
It was a little bit weird, I have to admit, just trying to sort of push through on my own and without sort of having a second voice there to assist. So it was a little bit different, but hey, I think it was still good, and there was a lot of great information.
Oh, maybe it was even better. Perhaps we've hit on a new format for the show. I don't know. Interested in your feedback, Pilgrims. No, it was good. It was good. And I mean, so much good information. Where do you even begin? But I personally loved the conversation about the rollback of the golf ball. I thought there's so much emotion and opinion that flies around in commentary about the rollback of the golf ball. People, it's a very black and white argument. Yes, it needs to happen. Distance is evil. No, it doesn't need to happen. I don't want to be cost another 10 yards on my drive when I'm already struggling to hit it far enough. People seem to be in one of two camps, but I think Sasho made some really, really interesting points. And what I thought is worth considering that needs to get out there in the conversation is the unintended consequences of the rollback is actually leading the game into a direction where it rewards the longer hitter and penalises the shorter hitter. And it might not actually have the outcomes that people want to see in the game as a result. So I did think that was particularly interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And the point he made in that the holes that the long hitters might hit a fairway or even a driving iron from the tee will just change and will hit driver from the tee, and their dispersion is such that it's not going to make any real difference apart from the club in their hand. Whereas the shorter hitters who have to hit driver on that particular hole will actually be a lot further back and won't be hitting from that same position on the hole as what the long hitters will.
Yeah, and I think the same can be achieved, potentially. And when we talk about course design, it's not necessarily about the lengthening of golf courses, but it's about the placement of bunkers and the placement of hazards, length of rough, width of fairways in certain areas. So I think there's so many other potential considerations that could be looked into if people legitimately want to stop people just trying to, play driver wedge. But anyhow, it was that was a good discussion.
Yeah, I mean, look, I understand the conversation around, that some golf courses are becoming, and some great courses are becoming obsolete. I understand that. However, I think there needs to be, some thought put in and some critical thought put into what that strategy is, because if, and we see swing speeds increasing, historically, over the last sort of 10, 15 years, swing speeds have been increasing, you know, I wouldn't say dramatically, but they are on the rise. So then if you're going to get, I think Sasho mentioned that the average PGA Tour average is now 116. If you're going to get that up to, 100 into the 120s, it doesn't matter what you do with the golf ball. You've got to pare the golf ball back a long, long way. If you're going to make a huge difference to how far people drive at that swing speed.
Yep, absolutely. Complex topic, but a good discussion. The other one, Andy Walker, I feel like we got a bit of a scoop in that interview.
Yes.
Potentially.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is exciting.
And look, that's one thing that obviously we talked about, the stack putting that I haven't made use of. But then down the line, there might be something in the works that I certainly hadn't heard of, and
no, I hadn't.
I'm involved with the stack, but yeah, the stack wedge play. I mean, that sounds really exciting.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I think, like, I'm not a stack user at the moment, although I am thinking of subscribing just for the putting element, because I feel like that could be really useful. But mind you need to get out on an actual green and do that rather than doing it on the putting mat, because you need to have the ups and downs and the lefts and rights and all those things that can't replicate inside. But the wedge play is really, really interesting as well. And from my understanding of things, you can probably speak on this, but obviously the technology is good, but the user experience of the app is brilliant, and that's what Sasho can bring to the table for wedge play, for putting, and for those elements to really help people with a really usable, user-friendly app interface. So that's cool.
And certainly from my experience, it is. I mean, of course, it's based on AI. The app individualizes your training program. So, I've, for instance, had a little bit of time where I wasn't using the stack. So rather than just going straight back into where I was, it recognizes that I haven't used it for a little while. So it sort of changes the program, gives me a couple of transitional workouts to ease myself back into the full program, which has been great. So, and even the individual programs, I might finish one program and then it makes a recommendation on what I do next, based on my performance, in the previous program. And they've got so many different data points now, sort of like, Arcos. I mean, Arcos has got, I don't know how many 100 million data points Arcos has in regards to shot data. Well, the stack now have that in regards to swing speeds. And people's performance and improvement in swing speeds. So, that same, AI element where they can individualize someone's experience, they've got a huge amount of information to be able to work that.
Yeah, which is really cool. So that's exciting. But what else is exciting, Andy Walker, is what we've got lined up for our next episode or two. There's a hell of a lot of information coming at you, Pilgrims. Way more than we can fit into this. Yeah, so we're going to need to wrap up the month that was May, and bring people up to speed with where we are at with the Missing Links Golf Show Yearly Championship. A bit of movement on that front. We need to take people through. We talked, I think 2 episodes ago now, about your tournament preparation for the Camden Senior Open.
Yes.
That event, as we sit here, has been played.
It has been.
And we're giving nothing away right now.
No spoilers.
We're giving nothing away. But there's a lot to talk about, which will flow into the next episode. The other thing that we've got to cover, Andy Walker, is a huge amount of Voice of the Pilgrims.
Right.
There's been a mountain of feedback coming at us from the Pilgrims from all points of the compass all around the globe.
Yeah, right.
yeah, so there's a lot to talk about there. There's a lot of really cool stuff that's going on out there in the pilgrimage more broadly.
Awesome. Love the Pilgrims talking to us.
It's very cool. And it's good to see some of them making use of the send us a text message button on the show notes. So please keep that up. That's a lot of fun. We can't actually reply to it directly though for whatever reason, but we certainly log it and we will talk about it in the next episode. So there you go, Andy Walker.
Sounds big.
It is. It's going to be big. Strap yourselves in, Pilgrims. We will be back. And Andy Walker, any final messages for anybody before we wrap up?
There's only one thing left to do.
What is that?
Rock out, Pilgrims.